Soviet architect traveling to Rome would never dress his woman in the clothes you tried to put her in. You tried to dress her like someone on your side thinks someone dressed behind the Iron Curtain.
She's from behind the Iron Curtain.
That doesn't mean she wants to bring it with her. We need 2 purses, please, and every day in clutch, and grab that belt. No, not the Dior, the Rabanne.
You can't put a Paco Rabanne belt on a Patou.
She's not going to wear Patou.
What's wrong with the Patou?
Nothing. If you're fat, the Dior goes with the Rabanne.
It won't match.
It doesn't have to match.
Have you seen the price of this handbag? It costs more than my car.
You can get back on your horse now, cowboy.
Armie, I think I spent a lot of this film going, when I was watching it. And not just because the rivalry between you and Henry Cavill's character just comes down to who's the best spy, but also who's the best dressed. Yeah. You know, this is a film that sort of glories in your appearance and also his appearance too. How important is the whole kind of costumes and hair aspect in a film like this, which is not only just set in a very specific point in the past, but is also based very heavily on films that were made at that time as well?
Sure. You know, I think it's the same reason that films that were made at that time sort of focused on similar style and things like that was because it was a very stylish time. You know, it was after the war, it was after rationing, it was when you could dress nice, you could have whatever you wanted. It was sort of before, I mean, obviously the Cold War was a crisis, but there was, you know, other than that, it was about looking nice. It was about style. Look at the cars of the day. Look at the clothes people wore. And you'll see it in our movie. Henry gets to wear some exceptional suits. I wear a turtleneck pretty much the entire movie, but he gets some really nice suits.
Did getting dressed in the costume, did that help inform the character? I mean, at what stage did you go for the fitting and get immersed in it that way?
Yeah, I mean, we had the fittings probably a couple weeks prior to starting to shoot where we tried out a bunch of outfits and you normally try them on. You shoot a couple frames on camera, see how they look kind of thing. And once we put on that turtleneck with the jacket and the pen, the slacks and the shoes, it was just it just kind of clicked, which hopefully it does through that process. And we just kind of said, "Yep, that's nice," because it's got a level of style to it, but it also has a level of sort of Soviet simplification, where you know he's not wearing the nicest suits that are obviously bespoke. He's wearing a utilitarian outfit that he can wear many places and do many things in. So it made sense for the character and sort of informed it that way.
Did Guy Ritchie give you a pile of old spy and war movies to work your way through? Because there's just so many kind of references. There's a motorcycle chase in this that has shots that are basically borrowed exactly from Steve McQueen's chase at the end of The Great Escape.
At The Great Escape, yeah, sure. You know, he didn't actually. I did go back and I certainly went back and watched the TV show, you know, as sort of a reference for this.
Did you know the TV show beforehand? I mean, had you heard?
I had no idea. Okay. When I heard that there was a movie called The Man From U.N.C.L.E, I thought that is the strangest title I've ever heard. But that doesn't even grammatically make sense. But then I went back and watched the TV show, and it's fantastic. You know, I got it on DVD and just spent a couple weekends kind of binge watching it. But, you know, no, I'd seen those great movies that we sort of gave some homages to in our movie. I don't know if they were intentional or not, or if it's just sort of the best way to shoot a motorcycle.
As befits a spy film that's set throughout Europe, there are a lot of accents in this movie. I don't think anyone, apart from Hugh Grant, is doing their own.
No, I think you're right.
How long did it take to get the Russian accent into place? And, I mean, did you have a particular sentence you were able to bounce off?
You know what? I was asked this question yesterday, and I did. I had a sentence that I would say sort of, not before every take, but at least every morning to kind of get myself right. But I, for the life of me, can't remember what it was, which bothers me so much. I wish I could. But it takes about a week for the accent to settle before it sounds in your own head like you're not sounding ridiculous. And we had a great dialect coach on the movie, a gentleman named Andrew Jack, who was there with us through the entire production. And he would sit off camera with just a set of headphones and listen and come over to you and go, yeah, most of it's great. This word, you might want to try this, or this is starting to sound a little bit too English, or this is starting to sound too American, you know, that kind of thing, which was really helpful to have sort of an outside perspective on it.
The idea of American and Russian characters working together totally makes sense for modern blockbuster movie because, you know, you can show it in America, you can show it in Britain, you can show it in Russia, you can show it wherever. But the original TV series, I suppose, in that respect, was quite progressive and maybe a bit ahead of its time.
Oh, absolutely, especially given the time when the TV show was on the air, the mid-'60s, when the tensions were really the highest, you know, so it was extremely progressive to do that. You know, I wish it's still progressive now, but like you said, it now makes it more approachable.
Something that really cheered me up in this film is it seems to restore the lost art of innuendo. I mean, there's a lot of the dialogue between you and Henry's characters. It does have that little kind of slightly affectionate subtext there if you're looking for it. Now,
Sure.
I gather you workshopped the scripts with the other cast members and also with Guy.
We did heavily, yes.
Who was responsible for the filth?
Yeah, that would probably be Guy. The movie is definitely laced with double entendre, and it's fantastic. You don't see that much anymore. Maybe it's because we had a very clever Englishman writing the script and there with us every day. We workshopped the script extensively at Guy's house for the most part, and we would go for, days at a time and for weeks and just go over every single scene, go over every single line. Is there a way we can make this funnier? Is there a way we can make it better? And it was very collaborative, and he was very open to suggestion. And if you suggested something, he might go, "Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, of course we're going to say that." Or he'd go, "We can't do that." So it was a really fun process, and to be included in that process and to feel like I was a part of it as opposed to just a spectator was great as an actor to get that.
Did you have a particular line or exchange that you added in that made the final cut that you were very proud of?
I wanted to swear quite a bit in Russian, and I did get to a little bit, but not very much.
That's the kind of thing that you get the film a PG-12A rating in the UK, and then in Russia it would be an 18 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That was the main concern.
Something about the pacing of this film is very kind of throwback to the 60s as well. It's you can easily imagine a Man From U.N.C.L.E. movie that's trying to kind of keep pace with modern blockbusters, throwing action scene after action scene after action scene. And I really enjoyed the fact that this film took a little time out and to luxuriate in the surroundings.
Sure.
And to kind of embrace that. Did that carry over onto the set at all? Was this as... Did it feel like quite a tense production at the time, or did that kind of extra breathing space carry over to Guy's method?
It was anything but a tense environment. It was one of the most relaxed shooting atmospheres I've ever been in my life. Especially when we were shooting in Rome and shooting in Naples, and we'd break for lunch, and instead of an hour, we'd take an hour and a half. Why not? And you know what? Instead of just eating out of little foam containers, let's put white tablecloth down. And in fact, we're in Italy. Let's have wine during lunch. It was just... the same way that Guy is able to apply that sort of clever sense of style to his movies, he's also the only director I've ever seen who equally applies it to every aspect of his everyday life. It's a skill to be able to do that in a movie, so why not apply that in other ways? So he doesn't do anything like a normal director. Everything he does sort of has that sense of flair and luxury to it, even the way he watches the filming. The tents that he has made with the Moroccan rugs and it was an amazing atmosphere to shoot in because it felt so relaxed and felt so easy. And, after you'd finish a take, you walk over and just pick up a guitar that's sitting around on the walls and just start playing the guitar. And all of a sudden someone else come up and pick up a guitar, and then you're jamming, and then someone's singing an old Irish folk song. It was just, there was nothing tense about it.
I think when you see Henry scoot into shot on that Vespa in Rome, that is Roman holiday. It's like he's just arrived on set to work.
Yeah.
But you said this was the by far the easiest shoot that you'd worked on, but then you're...
Well, physically it was arduous, but in terms of the atmosphere, it was the easiest.
But your big breakthrough, of course, was in The Social Network with David Fincher. A notoriously exacting director who will do 50, 60, 70 takes.
Sure.
Can you kind of tell me a bit about how working with Guy compared to working with David?
Oh, it barely does. It barely does, which is one of my favorite things about this business is every single director you work with will be different than the next. There's no director who directs like anyone else, which is amazing because they're all able to hopefully turn out comparably good projects, So with Fincher, it was extremely exacting, and it was, the sets are intentionally not relaxed environments. They are a place where you are there to work. Your phone is not out. You are not sitting unless you've been instructed to sit, and you're there to do your job over and over and over and over and over again until he's happy. Whereas, but the flip side of that is when he's happy, it's right. And when he says, okay, moving on, there's nothing else that could go better in that scene. Everything that he wanted to be there, he's happy with. So if he wants to move on, I'm happy to move on. Whereas with Guy, it's a much more almost improvisational, free-flowing style where something might happen in a scene that's an accident, but it could be a happy accident if it makes it better. So there's room for more flow, if you will. And he exists in this place of flow where he just allows creativity and allows all of those things to just happen, and they do. It's amazing.
The Social Network was a film that was basically orbited this kind of interplanetary-sized ego at the heart of it, Jesse Eisenberg's character, Mark Zuckerberg. But were you surprised at how much the Winklevoss twins kind of caught on from that film? Because it was, I mean, the two roles that you and Josh Pence played in a very kind of a strange intermingled way, did almost seem to kind of be as big a part of the film as Zuckerberg's role.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they sort of took off, or why people took them. I mean, they are pretty compelling characters. They're strange, especially in the movie, the way you see them.
Do people still think you have a twin?
Sometimes. I'll be honest, for the first year after that movie, people that I'd known in the business for 6 years to that point would come up to me and say, "You didn't tell me you had a brother." And I'd go, "Oh, come on, you're better than this. You know this, But I think the twins were just kind of compelling and fascinating, and you just look at these guys and go, they just don't get it. Like, you got $60 million, go away. They're just. It's a funny thing seeing these two grown men who are so similar and dress the same, and they're odd.
I have to ask as well, you're playing opposite Superman in this film. Now, before The Social Network, you were slated for the Justice League film that was going to be to play Batman, right? That was going to be made by George Miller, the director of Mad Max Fury Road.
Right.
How far down the line did that actually get? Because that was before the superhero movie boom.
Oh, we had done camera tests, and we were, I think, a week away from starting to shoot when the Australian writer's strike happened. And then there was a change in government policy in Australia where they changed their tax rebate system. So I think we were supposed to get 40% back of what was then, I think, going to be something like a $300 million movie or something. It was going to be one of the largest movies Warner Bros. Had ever made. And then so the Australian government changed their tax structure, and we were going to not get the 40% rebate, which of $300 million is enough money for them to go, maybe we should just pump the brakes on this. And they pumped the brakes, and it kind of brought it to a screeching halt.
I mean, do you still harbour a desire to play?
No. And to be perfectly honest, I'm so relieved that I didn't have to take on the role of Batman at 19 years old, knowing now how little I knew at 19. I mean, I wasn't ready for anything like that. It was a crazy thing, and I think I don't think that people were ready to see a 19-year-old Batman. It's a little young. It's hard to believe in any way. It's like his parents just got murdered. I mean, it's too young, I think, for a role like Batman.
I'm not just saying this because we're in an interview situation. I genuinely think The Lone Ranger was a massively undervalued movie. Do you regret not being able to go back and play that character again in the same way that obviously Johnny Depp's been able to revisit Jack Sparrow in numerous parts of the Caribbean films?
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
No, honestly, I think in 10 years' time, this film is going to be a big reevaluated thing. It's just crazily ambitious and
from
unique.
your mouth to God's ears. The thing with going back and doing that is, it would be difficult. I mean, physically, that was one of the toughest experiences I've ever had in my life. It was about 10 months of making that movie, of just riding horses through the desert and doing all that, kind of physical stuff. But it was the greatest movie-making experience I've ever had in my life. I truly became family with every single member of the crew. We spent basically 6 months at one point camping out in the middle of nowhere in the deserts. I mean, it was a beautiful experience that I would hate to try to go back to and recreate. So I'm thrilled I got to do it once. I'm glad you liked the movie, but
it had a serious contingent of supporters in the UK. Actually, there was a small group of UK critics that really seriously championed it, and I do honestly believe time will kind of prove us right.
Well, thank you,
Armie. Thank you very much.
No, thanks for having me.